Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Swanee, and for today's video, I'm going to be going over some tips and tricks that I feel that every Helldiver should know. Now I know the game is a few months old at this point, and a lot of you veterans out there probably know a lot of these already, but every day more and more new Helldivers join the fight, so I compiled a bunch of tips and tricks that will help out new players. And if you've been playing for a while now, you can just use this video as a bit of a refresher, or hey, maybe you'll end up learning something new. But first, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Outplayed. Outplayed is the ultimate video capturing app that automatically captures your highlights and biggest moments while gaming. You can set it up to record specific in-game moments or even record entire matches. And my personal favorite feature is that it has a built-in video editor so you can edit and share clips from directly inside the app. So if you end up recording a really epic in-game moment, you can share it directly to Discord to show all of your friends. So what are you waiting for? Outplayed is completely free and you can check it out by clicking the link in the description down below. And thank you to Outplayed for sponsoring today's video. So for the first few tips, I want to talk about the in-game settings. Now from my experience doing YouTube for about 8 years now, I've come to realize from making a lot of these tips and tricks videos that a lot of people never check their in-game settings or even mess with changing the button layouts at all. And what if I told you that there's a few settings that you should change ASAP that will definitely make your life way easier? So for example, I highly recommend that everyone goes and turns the reticle settings from dynamic to visible. Now by default, in third person, you'll only have a reticle when you're aiming your weapon. So when you aren't aiming your weapon, your screen is just blank and you have no reticle, making it pretty difficult to accurately hit your targets while hip firing. Well, if you change this setting to visible, then you'll always have a reticle on your screen at all times. Just go to options, then down to HUD, then down to reticle visibility and switch it to visible. Now I will say this takes a couple matches to get used to, but trust me, it completely changed the way that I played the game. This little change will make a huge difference when you're swarmed by like 20 different Terminids. By default, you kind of just have to spray and pray in the enemy's general direction and hope for the best. And with the reticle setting switched to visible, you can now shoot from the hip and accurately hit your targets. So next up is another setting change, but this one is for controller players. If you play using a controller, then I can't recommend enough that you go into options, head down to controller, then pick the change bindings option at the top, then go into the combat tab and scroll down to the quick grenade option. Now PC players don't have to worry about this because it's already turned on for them, but when you're playing on controller, you always have to manually pull out the grenade and hold it in your hand before you throw it, which I absolutely hate because I would constantly try to switch back to my primary weapon, but then I'd look down and I'd still have the grenade in my hand. So if you bind the quick grenade button to whatever button of your choice, then you can just quickly toss a grenade with one push instead of having to fight with the animations. This was a huge game changer for me, and I just replaced the normal grenade button with the quick grenade button, and I haven't regretted it since, and it has saved my life a number of different times. And next up, don't think I forgot about you PC players. If you're playing on PC, then I recommend you go into options, go down to mouse and keyboard, and then change bindings at the top. Then in the general tab, scroll down and change your stratagem bindings to something different. I changed them to the arrow keys, and I know some people have changed the buttons to their mice. So if you have a fancy mouse, you can change it to the mouse buttons. But by default, if you hold down the control button to open up the stratagem menu, then you can't move your character while you use WASD to type in the stratagem code. So if you change the bindings to, let's say, the arrow keys, for example, then you can still run away from the enemies while simultaneously punching in your stratagems. So for all you players that have been using the default settings this whole time, and you've been putting yourself at a disadvantage not being able to move while you punch in your stratagems, just change this setting and you'll notice right away that you'll be dying a lot less since you can now type in your stratagems on the move. So for the next tip, did you know that you can get the extraction ship, the Pelican 1, to help clear the extraction zone for you? Well, if you wait until the time is up on extraction, right as Pelican 1 is coming in for a landing, if you and your team run away from extraction outside of the radius, then Pelican 1 will just hover in the air and provide air support until you return. This is really handy for those crazy extractions where the landing zone is completely swarmed with enemies and you don't want to risk dying and losing your samples. Just chill outside of the extraction while Pelican 1 clears everything out for you, and then you and your team can safely extract, get the full amount of XP, and keep all all your samples. And since I'm on the topic of Pelican 1 and extracting, wait until everyone in your team is ready to extract before you get on the ship, because as soon as the first person gets on the ship, it will start the countdown timer. There's been a number of different times where my brain was just on autopilot and I wasn't thinking, and I just hopped on the ship immediately, and my friends that were still on the way didn't have enough time to extract, and of course we lost out on our samples. So don't be like me and make sure that your team is ready before you get on the ship and start down that timer. So are you tired of playing long 30+ minute matches collecting all the samples just to end up losing them deep in enemy territory right as you're about to run out of time? Well, to avoid this, get in the habit of dropping off your samples in a safe place after you collect them. Normally, me and my friends will either have someone run them over to the extraction point and drop them off until it's time to leave, or what I like to do is drop my samples off at a point of interest or an outpost that I already cleared, since I know there won't be any enemies there when I return later. And then when it's time to head to extraction, I'll just run back to wherever I left the samples and pick them up while I'm on my way to leave. So there's no need to carry your samples around the entire map and risk losing them when you could just leave them at a safe spot to grab later. The next tip is a simple one, but it's one that I never see anyone do, and it's to get in the habit of calling in a resupply after each encounter and at the very beginning of the match if you don't have the Hellpod Space Optimization Booster equipped. Now this is a little harder to do when you're playing with randos online, but if you're playing solo or with friends, call in a resupply pretty much anytime you clear a base or a bug nest or any of the objectives. This will obviously, refill your ammo, grenades, and stims, but you want to get that cooldown timer started as soon as possible, that way it's done by the time that you get to your next encounter. So I would get in the pattern of clearing out an outpost, dropping a resupply, running to the next outpost, and by the time I cleared that one and maybe dealt with some of the reinforcements, it would be time for another resupply, which would always keep me full of ammo. Another reason this is useful is in case you ever have to backtrack and revisit an area that you already cleared, there will be some leftover ammo waiting for you. This has helped me out a ton on my solo Helldive missions when I'm running for my life and I stumble across an area that I've already been to, and the old resupply was still there waiting for me. So be smart with your resupplies and try to call them in as much as possible. That way, if you or your teammates are ever in trouble and you're out of ammo or you're out of stims, you'll always know where you can fall back to get yourself an emergency resupply. So did you know that when you're going up against the annoying Shrieker enemies, it's very easy to get overwhelmed by these guys? So just hit the ground and lie prone and you'll avoid most of their attacks. Another good tip that has saved my life a ton of times is that when you're trying to call in a support stratagem like a resupply or a machine gun or a quasar cannon, don't drop it where you're at and stand there and try to defend it. Throw it as far as you can ahead of you and pick it up while you're on the run. So have you ever struggled with a Bile Titan where it just feels like it refuses to die no matter what you hit it with? Well, an easy way to deal with the Bile Titans is to shoot out the 2 bile sacs underneath of it first. This will completely stop it from puking acid at you, and it will make it very susceptible to the next airstrike you hit it with. On their own, stratagems like the Orbital Rail Cannon Strike, the 500 kg Bomb, Eagle Airstrike, and the 110 Rocket Pods normally can't take out a Bile Titan. But if you shoot out the sacs underneath of it first, then it will pretty much guarantee that any of those stratagems will kill it on the next hit. So are you tired of constantly being chased by chargers? Well, a well-placed quasar, expendable anti-tank, or recoilless rifle to the face can take them out in just one hit. And my personal favorite way to deal with a charger is to hit it with a stun grenade and then cook its leg for about 4 seconds with a flamethrower to make quick work of it. And since I brought up the stun grenade, it's also one of my favorite ways for dealing with the Automaton Hawks. Just hit it with a quick stun grenade and then shoot it directly in the eye with either the laser cannon, anti-material rifle, or railgun, and it will go down fast. And if you don't have a support weapon on you, you can always just hit it with a stun grenade and then run around behind it while it's stunned and mow it down with your primary weapon. Basically, stun grenades are amazing. Next up, when you're facing the automatons, if they throw a grenade at you, you can run up to it and kick it back at them or out of the way. This is normally safer than trying to run away from it or lying there on the ground thinking you're far enough away from the blast radius. I've noticed that kicking the grenade will extend the fuse time, making it take a little bit longer before it blows up. Also, when you're facing the automatons, if you're struggling to get a grenade in the vent holes of the factories, you can always just wait for the doors to open and you can throw a grenade inside and blow it up that way. The next tip involves the shield generator relay. Now, I know a lot of people don't like this stratagem because it can't take very much damage before breaking, but the shield generator relay is great for when you need to call in a hell bomb and want to protect it while it's charging up to go off. And it comes in pretty clutch when you're trying to defend at extraction, so don't sleep on the shield generator. Another good way to keep a hell bomb alive while you're trying to arm it is to call in a smoke strike. Now, smoke strikes are another example of a stratagem that's not very popular in the community, and I think it's because a lot of people don't understand how the smoke works. Now, smoke strikes will break an enemy's line of sight, letting you easily make a quick escape. If you use a smoke strike against the automatons, for example, they will shoot into the smoke and charge towards your last known location. So if the enemy knows your location and you throw down a smoke and you stand still, they're still going to be able to shoot you. So get in the habit of throwing a smoke before the enemy see you so you can sneak up on them. Or what you could do is throw down a smoke strike, they're going to be shooting at your last known location, and this will let you run around them and flank the enemies. So arming a hell bomb and covering it in smoke will hide it from your enemies and will prevent them from disarming it. Another cool trick I like to do with the smoke strikes is throw it on top of enemy factories, and the impact of the smoke strike will blow up the factory, but it won't alert the robots to your position, letting you keep the element of surprise. Stealth is going to be your best friend when facing the automatons. Another really good stratagem to use as of late is the orbital gas strike. Now, one of the latest updates fixed a pretty major bug that was preventing damage over time effects, and since that is now fixed, the orbital gas strike is now better than ever before. And one of the really cool things about the orbital gas strike is that it can also be used to destroy things like objectives and robot factories and stuff like that. And it has a pretty quick cooldown time compared to some of the other stratagems. So this has helped me a ton when I'm trying to sneak into an automaton base. I'll throw the orbital gas strike onto a factory, the impact will blow up the factory, and then the gas will kill any of the remaining robots. The orbital gas strike is also really good at those defend missions where all the enemies are funneling in through the gates. Just throw the gas strike right in the middle of the gate and the enemies will be forced to walk right through it, killing everything in its path. The orbital gas strike is also extremely good at bug breaches. Anytime I see a bug breach now, I just drop an orbital gas strike on it and it will kill all the enemies as they spawn. So since they fixed this glitch, don't sleep on the orbital gas strike. And then the final tip I have for you guys in today's video is that when you're choosing your loadout, try to pick things that complement each other. Don't just blindly choose your stratagems. For example, if you have the Eruptor as your primary weapon, you don't want the grenade pistol as your secondary weapon. That way, if enemies get up in your face, you don't end up killing yourself because both your primary and secondary will do splash damage that can kill you. You want to always have a way to deal with most enemy types. I've made the mistake before where I didn't have a single stratagem that could deal with a Bile Titan, so I was just forced to run away anytime I saw one. If you have a primary weapon that does light armor penetration, then you want to pair it with a support weapon that can deal with enemies with medium armor. So if your primary was the default assault rifle, it would pair well with the autocannon or the railgun, for example. If your primary has explosive damage, like the Eruptor or the Scorcher, you'd want to pair it with something that could take out those enemies that get up in your face, like the Stalwart or the secondary auto pistol, the P19 Redeemer. When I choose my loadouts, I like to go through a checklist in my head. Do I have something that can take out Chargers? Do I have something for Bile Titans? Do I have something for Stalkers or Hunters? Same goes for the automatons. Do I have something that can take out Hulks or tanks or the gunships? One time I went in to face automatons and I didn't have anything that could take out gunships, and they just chased me around the entire map, forcing me to just leave the match. So when you're playing on those harder difficulties, you definitely want to have a well-balanced loadout, otherwise you're going to be in for a world of hurt. So that's going to do it for all the tips and tricks in today's video. If you guys enjoyed this video or if you learned something new, then consider giving this video a thumbs up. It'll let me know that you want more of these types of videos in the future, and it helps me out in the algorithm. And if you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. That way you don't miss out on any future Helldivers 2 videos. And that's going to do it for me, and I'll talk to you all next time.